Today I'm going to be doing a review on my 2024 CForce 800 XC. Now, as many people that follow the channel know, I actually started our YouTube channel with the purchase of the 2022 CForce 600 Touring. I had this machine now for 2 years. This machine has been great to me. As you can see, there are some modifications of this machine. There is the radiator relocation. I didn't relocate that to take it into deep mud. I relocated it to relocate the radiator to help keep the radiator clean. There's also Elka shocks installed on this machine. I upgraded the winch. There's a non-factory winch on this machine. And I also have the rival skid plates on this machine as well. The other added item to this CForce 600 Touring is obviously an RNG clutch kit. And if anybody knows CFMoto, RNG is your guy. If you need anything, any parts, any clutch kits, hop on over to RNG Performance. The link is in the description. RNG sponsors all the clutch kits for all the machines that ride on our channel. And right now there's a total of 7. So back to the review on the 2024 CForce 800 XC. The reason why I ended up buying this machine, so if you go back and watch my first ride with this machine, I mentioned that this was originally the model that I wanted. And due to the trailer size that I had at the time, unfortunately, I couldn't get it. It wouldn't fit. It was too wide, and I think it was actually too long. So I ended up with the 600 Touring. I'm not disappointed. This machine is an extremely capable machine. It ran great. It served me well. I seen a lot of miles on this machine, and it was well worth it. But the one thing that this machine, where it lacks compared to this one, is this doesn't have the power that this machine does. Now, obviously, there is an engine size difference. There's also an engine cylinder difference. I'm not a small guy. And when I'm on this and I take a passenger, this machine definitely feels it. I want to say that the 600 Touring is not meant to carry 2 fairly large adults. It's more geared towards the lower, lighter people, smaller frame. But don't get me wrong, this machine climbed everything I threw at it with a passenger. It performed very well, went through mud, everything. So when I purchased this based off of, I wanted something with a little more power, especially when I'm riding, my wife rides with me. I want to be able to, hang with the single cylinder, like, Grizzly Tom rides the 660 Grizzly. John, our mechanic, is now running the 700 Kodiak. So I want to be able to kind of, sit with them, or if I'm leading them in a ride, I want to be able to have the power to pull away, or at least keep a decent distance between us. And this machine fit that bill. So I'm going to tell you, I am incredibly impressed with this machine, with how it lays power down. This is a completely different chassis compared to the 600 Touring. This machine, the 800 XC, shares the same platform as the 1000 Overland, and it's just different motor. So it is night and day compared to the 600, the 800 XC. When it comes to power, torque, handling, the handling on this machine is completely different than this machine. This machine is straight A-arm suspension all the way around. This machine, the 800 XC, is A-arm suspension up front with trailing arm suspension in the rear. So make sure you're aware of that. It does have a tendency to ride a little bit different than having true full A-arm suspension. Now, one thing I will say about this machine is the 800 XC is the suspension is on the stiff side. It's 3-way fully adjustable versus the stock shocks that come on the 600 Touring, which were just notch click shocks. You can adjust the spring tension. This one has rebound. It has spring tension. It has everything. I ended up actually leaving probably about 1.5 inches out on these springs, and it's still on the stiff side. Now, one thing that I found on the 600 Touring stock shocks before I upgraded to the Elkas is the stock shocks did loosen up after about a year. So I'm hoping that this one loosens up as well, but we'll see. One of the cons that I have for this machine is definitely not as comfortable as a 600 Touring. And I'll show you guys in a second. The seats are completely different. The 800XC has a much higher seat. And when I say higher, I mean where it mounts to the machine to the height of the seat. And looking at it, I'm going to say it's probably about 8-9 inches. I mean, it's pretty big. The 600 Touring is about like this, so about 5 inches. Matter of fact, my buddy Troy, who also has the blue 800XC that rides on their group, we switched one day and he was shocked. Just in the 5 minutes he rode the 600, he was like, holy crap, that thing is way comfortable compared to the 800. So keep that in mind when you're shopping for the machine that you choose. My other complaint with this machine, and if you look at the title, I didn't put the title up, 500 mile review 2024 CForce 800XC. It's on fire. This machine is not on fire because it's like sought after, although it is a good seller for CFMoto. It's on fire because one of the biggest cons I have is this thing throws off some heat. And let me tell you, it's hot. Now, Steve over at RNG sent me a cool down pipe and I was going to install it, but unfortunately I was looking at the way it was set up, and in order for me to get in there and cut the, you have to cut the catalytic converter away from the pipe, and there was no easy way for me to get even a Dremel with a grinding wheel on it in there to do it. I would have had to remove my fenders most likely, and I really didn't want to do that. So I'm dealing with the heat right now. It does give off a decent amount of heat around your legs. There was a ride that I did back in June with 2 of our guys in our group, and I actually called the ride short because it was like 90 degrees that day. We were riding in the cold mountains, and let me tell you what, my legs were on fire. I had to stop. And those guys will tell you I don't call rides early unless it's downpouring. So I'm working on some ideas there, maybe with the plastic. I'm trying to come up and pick my brain on what I'm going to do about that. But overall, this machine is awesome. It is awesome. I have had 0 issues with it. It fires right up, and the transmission engages very quickly. Now, one thing I will say, this machine's throttle compared to this machine's throttle is night and day. Complete opposite. This one, you literally have to give it a little bit of gas in order for the clutch to engage, and I'm talking around 2,000 RPMs. This machine, the 800XC, you just lightly bump it and this thing's jumping forward. I mean, it is so touchy. It takes some getting used to. When I first got on this, I was like, oh my God. I was like, I was bucking it. And now at the time it had the stock clutch in it. Since then, both these machines are running full RNG clutch kits. That's from the primary all the way to the secondary. And both of these machines are clocked to B2. They are running the stock secondary spring. However, they are running RNG primary springs for the primary kit. This one has the SRM3 in it, and this one has the recently released, the RNG R1 Helix. So this is awesome. The R1 Helix rips on this machine. I mean, I can run trails, and the throttle response is just, it lays it down. It's pretty cool. Now, another con that I have for this machine, and this isn't a deal breaker in no way, it has nothing to do with the machine, it actually has to do with CFMoto. CFMoto did away with the cargo box for the 800XC. I think that is a massive mistake CFMoto did. And I'm not trying to be critical of CFMoto because I really think they're doing phenomenal jobs with their machines, especially with the new 3rd gen line. But them killing the cargo box on the 800XC, I think really hurts them. If you look behind me, I ended up actually taking the cargo box off my 600 and mounting it to this. And yes, I had to drill 3 holes in it, but I was able to line it up to where the holes are for the rack to receive those, the washers and the bolts. So it's on there, it's bolted down. I didn't have to drill the rack in any way. I just had to drill the cargo box. So that's one of my biggest complaints as well, is CFMoto, you made a huge mistake killing that cargo box for the 800XC. When I bought this, I knew that it didn't have a cargo box available, so I did tell them, although I did a review and I'm against the CFMoto cargo bag. I think it's junk. The zippers are horrible. After they get muddy, they get wet, they're shot. I ended up having them put the same cargo bag on this because there really was no other option. And I regretted it. After about 3 rides, the one zipper failed. I gave up. So I ripped it off, took the rack off that came, that I had to put with it, and I ended up putting the cargo box from the 600 Touring on this. So I'm eventually going to get another box or something for this machine so it has some type of storage. But so as far as mods for this machine, I have a full off-road Ricochet aluminum skid plate from A-arms, underbelly, all the way back. There is a GSE exhaust on this as well. And I do have 1-inch spacers on this and also a Paraflex 2-inch lift. And then the final is obviously the RNG full clutch kit. We added these lights here. These will come in handy. We're actually riding some trails next week and we're going to do a night ride. And these will come in handy. The thing I like about these is I can turn these. So I'll have the front lights and then I'll be able to turn these out to open up more on the trail. That way, if deer jumps out, I'll be able to see it, standing there. The machine has been great. I just did the 500-mile oil change on this. And when I did this machine, I was shocked at how the motor oil looked at 500 miles. It looked amazing. It looked brand new. The diff oil in this machine though was a little dark. There was also the normal first break-in, a little bit of dust on all the magnets. But this machine, the 800XC, I waited 500. I'm sorry, I back up. I did this at 200 miles. I wanted to wait for this one at 500 miles. I just wanted to push it, and I was blown away. The motor oil still looked brand new, and the diff oil, front and rear, still looked brand new. I couldn't believe it. Brand new. Little bit of, like I said, a little bit of metal dust on all the magnets, but I don't know if it's just because of the way the engines are set up. These are two completely different engines. Obviously it's different size. What I'm going to do is I'm going to run down. I had to print something. I'm sorry, but I don't know it all by heart. I know some of it, but so some differences between this machine, the 600. So if you're considering a 600 Touring, and you're on the fence about an 800 and you really don't want to go to the 1000, you can look these options up. But this is a 22 compared to a 24, but you can kind of see the difference in jump that I did. So this is a 580cc single cylinder motor. This is an 800cc V-twin. This one makes 440 horsepower at 6,500 RPMs with 36 foot-pound of torque, while this one makes 62 horsepower at 6,250 RPM with 4,700 foot-pounds of torque. This one has an almost 8-gallon fuel tank, while this one has a 4.6. This machine, I was shocked, actually weighs 915 pounds, while this one weighs 1,056. The tow capacity on this machine is drastically reduced from this one. It's actually half. It's 873 pounds. While this one is 1,650. And I will say, and I don't understand how Polaris has not gotten it right yet, but Polaris is still releasing their ATVs with a 1-inch, 1 3/4 size. I don't know the size, but it's not a 2-inch receiver for their hitch receivers on their 4-wheelers. Both of these are 2-inch receivers, full 2-inch. So I find that to be, it's much easier to find accessories for a 2-inch receiver versus the Polaris oddball size. So this one actually has a 3,000-pound winch. This one has a 3,500-pound winch. So one thing I did want to mention with this machine versus this machine, and again, it has nothing to do with the review on this. This machine is absolutely awesome, as well as this machine is much more nimble, I feel, than this one is. This one seems to sit a little bit lower, it looks like, as far as the frame height. And when you get on it, also the seat height is much lower on the 600. When you run the trails, and if at any point, a lot of people don't buy utility ATVs to go screaming down trails, ripping through winds and turns and whatnot. But our group has a tendency to run a little bit rough sometimes. They run fast-paced. So this is much more nimble than this is. This one has a tendency to feel like a tank. This one has a tendency to feel like you're throwing the ATV where you want it to go. This one feels like it's telling you where it wants to go. It's just really weird. So if you have an opportunity to drive both, Some people do. I'm blessed. I actually have two. I'm contemplating selling this one. I'm not quite sure yet what I'm going to do, but you know, we did start the channel with this one. I'd really hate to see it go, but again, I don't need two ATVs, so we'll see. One of my largest complaints with this machine, and the 1000 also experiences this as well, is the heat that this motor throws off. This motor throws off some serious heat, especially down the exhaust pipe. You got to figure this one is a single cylinder running one pipe off the head. This one has two coming off the head, front and in the back, in the rear, on the, you know, the rear cylinder. And that's coming into a larger pipe that's running down the side of your leg. So that's equal for the 800 and the 1000 overland. It gets extremely hot. It really does. Now, Steve over at RNG did send me a cool down pipe that GSC makes, which is ironic because I'm running a GSC exhaust. So I do have to talk to Steve a little bit further on this, because the way it looked to remove the catalytic converter, there wasn't a lot of area in there for me to get a grinder or even a Dremel cutting wheel to cut the catalytic converter out without removing the fenders. And I really don't want to have to remove the fenders. But if it's going to cool this thing down drastically, and I hear it does, I might end up giving that a shot. Not a deal breaker. This machine in the wintertime, I don't feel anything but comfort when I ride this. Summertime, even in jeans, it's a little warm. But if you're a shorts rider, like I wear shorts when I ride this in the summertime. If you're a shorts rider, I would be very cautious about riding this or the 1000 overland wearing shorts. It's going to be very, very hot. So just keep that in mind. So here, and there we go. So here you guys can see what I was saying about the height of this seat. It is huge. Now this one is really no different than the 600, but you know, looking at the height of this seat, you're sitting up rather high. I actually tried to switch the 600 seat on this, but it wouldn't line up right. So I couldn't do it. But my wife said in the beginning that this is definitely different in the line of comfort compared to the 600 Touring. So if we come around here to the 600 Touring, you're going to see the ride height of this seat is much, much lower than the 800 XC. And she says this, for some reason, and I'm wondering if that's up higher, and I think I look like it is. So if you look at the height between the seat and the footrests, and the seat and the footrests here, this one is actually lower. Now, I don't know if that would make that more comfortable for your legs, but it's quite possible. And don't mind the paper, that was my cheat sheet earlier. This looks like your legs will be bent more, maybe in a higher position. So maybe that's what she's referring to as far as this is definitely different in comfort compared to the 800 XC. Now, I caught a lot of flack when I bought this machine. I bought this machine in 2024. Actually, I think it was February. And the Gen 3s were just starting to come out. The new 800 Touring and the 1000 Touring. I did want the Overland, but I just didn't like the look of the Overland. The boxes, the bumpers, it just looked like a safari vehicle, and it just wasn't for me. So I ended up going with the 800 XC, and I don't regret it at all. I really don't. But I caught a lot of flack from a lot of people that I didn't wait for the Gen 3. And there was a clear reason. I wanted the Gen 3. I thought they did an amazing job on the dash. I thought they did an amazing job on the looks. However, they do look a little Polaris. I hate to say it. The front ends look a little bit like Polaris. If you look at the new Polarises that just released, matter of fact, Polaris just released a Touring model, but they are ridiculously priced. The new Gen CForces kind of look like them. And, you know, people always scream that they, you know, up until Gen 2, that they copied the looks of some Can-Ams. And I don't know, but I'm not complaining in any way. But one of the main reasons why I didn't go with the new Gen 3s was because it's a new generation, and I wanted to wait until the bugs got worked out. And if you hop over to RNG's site, you will see he has an 800 Gen 3. And there were some kinks that he had mentioned when, you know, testing this machine. The machine wants to drive on its own. The machine gets incredibly hot. He's doing some clutch work to it right now, which is a good thing, because he's getting ready to hopefully release clutch parts for that, you know, upgrades and mods through not only himself, but Stingray Mods. So would I buy this machine again? Absolutely, 100%. Would I recommend this machine? Absolutely, 100%. My only two gripes on this machine, and they are somewhat adjustable or fixable, is the suspension. I would love to throw a set of Elka shocks on this. I was hoping that these were going to fit on this. That's why I did the 2-inch lift, but they didn't. So the Elka shocks stay on this one. But I was hoping to do Elka shocks on this. Maybe down the road, I'll consider it if these don't loosen up. And then the heat. The heat that the engine gives off is a little hot, unbearable sometimes. And then my only gripe at CFMoto, for recap, is that they killed the cargo box. That was one of the biggest mistakes they did. They shouldn't have done that. So there you have it. My honest review of the 2024 CForce 800 XC and throwing in the 2022 600 Touring to compare the two. So please, if you like this video, give us a like, give us a share. Please subscribe. If you find this video helpful, please share it out. Once again, jump over to RNG Performance, rngperformance.net. I will have the link in the description below. I'm sure he'll appreciate the business as well. And we thank him not only for the support, but we thank all of you for the support also. Have a great day, guys.